who will succeed Hassan Rouhani. Iran's presidential election on 18th of June is considered one of the most remarkable political events this year, yet not one that brings much change for Iranians.
من رأی نمیدم حقیقتا. من اصلا مطلقا رأی نمیدم. این 4 سال یعنی واقعا همه چی گرون شده، بدبختی‌ها زیاد شده، پولدارا پولدارتر شدن.
والا به همشون رأی دادیم، هیچ اتفاقی نیفته. برعکس نه خونه‌مون گوش داریم، نه مرغ داریم، نه پول داریم. به ما گفتن آب و برق فلان، الان خدا رو شکر اونم نداریم. نصف روز نه برق داریم، نه آب داریم.
The election is that different opposition group or independent people wants to nominate themselves and becomes a candidate. But in Iran, no opposition group, no women, obviously, no one who is not part of the regime or can participate under no circumstances in any country. This is called election. And it's an election between people who belongs to the regime.
Analysts and human rights activists consider this election undemocratic. Out of 600 candidates, the Guardian Council, the body responsible for the selection, only chose 7 and excluded any centrist from running. Some of them have marred Iranian history with atrocious human rights violations the population would hardly forget.
The favorite candidate is quite scary. His name is Ebrahim Raisi. Currently, he's the head of the judiciary. He's well known in Iran because in 1980s, at the end of the war with Iraq, so it was exactly in 1988, he was the one who was involved in mass executions of political prisoners, of dissidents, of course. And he was the one who signed the death penalties for thousands and thousands of opponents. We have another candidate who's a member of the Pasdaran, of the Revolutionary Guards, General Mohsen Rezai. He did play a role in the Iran-Iraq war in the sense that many of his decisions during the war led to the death of soldiers. The third candidate is Saeed Jalili. He's well known in Iran because he used to be Iran's chief nuclear negotiator. Then we have 2 other candidates. We have Amir Hossein Khazizadeh Hashemi. We have Ali Reza Zakani. And then we have 2 more candidates who are considered to be reformists. I mean, even the current President of Islamic Republic, Hassan Rouhani, he's considered moderate, but he did awful things in his career. In July 1999, he was the one who told the police to throw students out of the windows of the dorms.
A high turnout is needed for the candidates to prove legitimacy. However, No Way I Vote is now trending on Persian social media. A turnout below 40% has been predicted for this year's election. In fact, disillusionment during Rouhani's presidency has mounted. The country has gone through numerous changes and challenges, including the US withdrawal from the JCPOA in 2018, economic sanctions, recession, the outbreak of coronavirus, and dozens of protests against the regime, which have filled Iranian prisons. During the 2019 protest, 300 demonstrators were killed by Iranian authorities.
At the time of the Rouhani, especially the first few years, the number of execution even went high, especially execution of those who were arrested under the pretext of drug or stuff like that. The pressure on right activists even increased on a daily basis, basically, and harassing the families of political prisoners as well.
Iran is currently affected by their worst economic crisis since the 1979 revolution. With the inflation rate reaching 50%, over the past few weeks, people have taken to the streets of major cities demanding economic and democratic reforms.
The pensioner, teachers, any kind of across the spectrum, they were in a street, and even though they've been told, they've been forced, they were threatened to not do anything, but they came out, they showed their anger, and they showed that they are not happy and they are not accepting this system anymore. In Iran, 90% of Iranians, they support the workers' right now. They are part of them. Every time they hear that somebody were arrested, they are fighting among themselves who can put the bail for their release. Right now, according to their statistics, 70% of Iranian is around the poverty line and under poverty line. The country is run by the secret services, and they are making those decisions. This ownership under this organization, it's basically is the style of the mafia and kleptocracy, and they are using the people's money and they spend it outside the country. And we see that the result of it is coming from the Yemen to go to Syria and even goes to Afghanistan right now.
Will issues such as the crackdown on protesters, the killing of political prisoners, and the arrest of dual nationals be addressed during the new presidency? The reality is that the next president of Iran will have little power with regards to humanitarian issues.
As far as I know, these issues are not tackled by candidates because these issues, human rights issues, concern national security. And as such, national security is not in the hands of the president of the Islamic Republic of Iran, but rather in the hands of the supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei. Human rights are in the hands of the head of the judiciary. And in this case, Raisi is currently the head of the judiciary. If he is elected president of the Islamic Republic of Iran, he will move into presidency, but he will keep all the connections with the judiciary as well. Since Ayatollah Ali Khamenei is currently 82, Raisi might be eligible to become the next Rahbar as well.
They are talking about two specific laws that they want to bring to their parliament and talk about it. Mm-hmm. One of them is having more restriction on internet, meaning that they want to restrict people getting message from outside world. And the other one is that basically passing a law that says if prisoners get arrested for, let's say, under the accusation of assisting what they call it, the foreign countries, then the charge should be execution. So something like giving execution to those who've been arrested because of what they call it kind of espionage or anything like that, they mean the dual citizens, dual nationals.
Judiciary Chief Ebrahim Raisi will likely be the next president of the Islamic Republic of Iran. He is also the favorite candidate of the Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei. His election would come as a black cloud hanging over the future of Iran and its citizens.
Raisi, who was in charge of massacring political prisoners in 80s, and everyone knows that. And actually, he is sanctioned by the European Union.
We have a darkest moment of history in front of us, the day after Raisi becoming president. And I lived those days, and I remember those days, the Raisi and his groups, what they done to Iran. And they are the product of those days. And they cannot probably take back to 1980 what they done to Iran, but they are capable to do that.
It will be very hard for him to travel to Europe and to be, admitted to Rome, Paris, and other European capitals to discuss business, as Rouhani did, for instance, in Rome and in Paris in January 2016.
The West is looking at this Friday's election with interest and concern. Election of a new leader will not only affect Iranians, it will also have profound geopolitical consequences. Whether it will be Ebrahim Raisi to lead the Iranian government or another of the chosen candidates, the new presidency will determine future economic and diplomatic negotiations with the US and the European Union. But the human rights of the population will hardly be part of any table discussion.